Hey everyone, welcome to your daily update for SOL and BTC. So looking at the daily liquidity, it's evening out, so that's quite good really, like long term bullish because if they hover around a certain price and liquidity starts building both sides, it means we're not really at a blow off top yet. And if there's easy to grab liquidity to the upside, then there's probably going to be more upside. Um, Looking at Sol, the levels haven't really changed that much. There's sort of anything up to about that 240, and down into those 220s. BTC's been very strong. There's a little bit of an indication on the short-term liquidity that there is not much short-term liquidity coming in now between 124 and 126, but so it might be time to have a little bit of a rollover. But that's really short-term liquidity. If we look at it from a one-day perspective, then there's still stuff to grab there at that 126. If we have a look at the 7-day, so people are really starting to trust the pump. There is still some shorts, to the upside, but as you can see, there's just a heck of a lot of people are coming in with longs. So unfortunately, that does mean that there might be that dip, that one-time eventual dip. The chart, the 31-day close today is sort of giving a really good area of confluence around 114k. So basically that area right there. So if we were to get some kind of pullback, it wouldn't surprise me if it went down to there. But the thing about that is there's a range trend sitting there that every time it's been recaptured historically has created between 140 and 220% move to the upside. So as crazy as it might sound, if the price went down to 114, you could probably see 200 plus, which is and that's just purely history repeating, really. So we'll see if that comes to fruition. You heard it here first. Failing that, just disregard I said it. There's an influencer online who is boasting that he claimed he knew exactly the day of all-time highs. I went on to AI and I said how many calls has he got right versus wrong, and 70% of his calls have been wrong. So I suppose it's still 30% up. Still 30% were right. So let's just not speak of the other 70%. So looking at the liquidity here, it's starting to form up to 130. So we might get to see those targets which have been in play for a while. But definitely there is incentive to take that downside before going up. And I just don't know if there's enough euphoria yet, really. Like, there's plenty of people ball posting. There's new people popping up in the discords. There's, people talking about how they're winning every single trade and they've got really high win rates and all that kind of stuff. So the signs are sort of popping up, but whether it's enough yet to really see a flush to the downside is I don't know. I live in a realm of mostly very realistic people, so. I probably should just go join a couple of random groups and see if there's lots of Bitcoin rockets and things being fired. We'll see. Looking at the 30-day. So the 30-day is kind of the one I'm quite interested in. I've been playing around a lot with 30-day and 31-day exchange native anchoring, and there's a level up here at about 258, which would become a target level if we close over 234 today, based on some exchange structure. So we might, the liquidity, although it's not huge, most of it taps out around 250. Spiking through the 250 to grab that 288 might be the case, and most of those moves that we've been tracking have played out in the last couple of days. So we've definitely got a bit of room to play, but because of the SOL BTC chart, SOL's just been basically lagging behind BTC's moves. But this part of the cycle, you sort of expect BTC to be interesting. It needs to go to some kind of new high, and then it needs to get boring. And when it gets boring, people look to diversify the risk. They've become so confident with the gains and the fact that BTC's been going up, and then they start to look at altcoins to gain some kind of risk and some more profits. And that's just going through the steps of the cycle, really. So if it was to have a dip based on the 30-day, the key blocks of liquidity basically are down to that sort of 216, 218 area, and then you move down to more like your 209, 210, and then you're down to your 200. If it really goes for gold and takes it all. So looking at the short-term liquidity heat maps, we've got this gap here on BTC now, which is sort of that 125 to 126 area. It would be much easier for them to come down here and create a cascading effect to the downside than it would be for them to try and buy it up to that higher level. So it is possible that this is the day, maybe even. Don't know what day of the week it is even. It's a Monday, yeah. So typically Monday's about the end of the weekend trap, and then we move into Tuesday, where quite often the true trend starts to reveal itself. So having this gap that's at the top here, and the day of the week, and the fact we've just come through this really bullish weekend, it might be the day that we actually start to see a bit of a pullback. But it may not be huge because we have hard closed a lot of these levels. Like the 120.9 level, which would allow them to pretty much eat every single piece of 100x leverage that's available short term, if they went down and just retested that 120.8, 120.9 level on Bitcoin that's been hard closed. So yeah, that's kind of what I'm seeing there. Whereas if you look at the liquidation on SOL, well, they've got the ability to push up. There isn't as much of a gap, but at the same time, it's not completely full yet. So, there's still pretty easy for that to go down, but there's a lot better potential for it to go up. So we might see some strength come back into SOL versus BTC, a bit of a reversion of the current weakness. So let's have a look at these charts. So looking at SOLBTC Strength, it looks like it's going to develop a hold level in the next 2 hours. So as long as it stays over that 18612 area there, it will have something then at least to try and break through this wall of trend resistance. So it has been breaking downtrends. So like overall, the target is still to head up to that lovely little round number backside there at exactly 200000. Surprise, surprise, side number that'll almost certainly reject. Well, it's actually slightly above that. So so that if that happened in the next 3 days, by the 9th of October, it would be a trend retest of the prior broken trend as well. So that's the kind of thing that this looks like it's trying to get towards. What's really important is that every single day since it closed below that 188.34 break level, it has touched that break level. So that is just a break level. It's not converted to an origin. It's not high time frame resistance. If we get this hold level today, and then we can bounce off that hold level and hopefully break through this resistance, then you could see strength come back into SOL, which lines up with the fact that you've got that sort of short-term liquidity gap on BTC. You don't on SOL. They're going to want to go and, even if BTC is going to have a dip, which it may do, they're probably going to want to go and grab that liquidity on SOL before they then actually do that dip, which means strength needs to come back into SOL. So as far as how the weekly's playing out, the weekly hasn't converted to high time frame resistance yet, so that's good. It's still holding trend support, so everything on the weekly is still okay for now. Looking at the safety assets, so we are getting exactly what we wanted. This is what we asked for Christmas, and we got it. We're getting rejection of the trend. We're getting a hold level forming at that 65% area. This is all assuming that closes don't massively deviate from what you're seeing now. And we may even be able to get a close to the underside of the prior accumulation break. So that would be if we get a close below 64.91. So we're on the range trend. If it can just push down a little bit more and say about 64.86, then it can open on the wrong side of that trend, on the wrong side of the break, basically introduce a bunch of resistance and then have a crack at this level, which is that 64.68 level, which is current support because it's been broken, hard closed, etc. So it's going to try and hold the price up, but hopefully it can push through that. So if it does, then it's going to try to find some kind of support around that 64.4 area, 64.5, or it's going to go down and try to find support in the hold down here, which is about 64.2 to 64.32. So, this is looking good for hopefully some rotation into riskier assets at this stage. And the weekly is basically saying the same. So, although just this down here on the weekly at 63.76, that is confirmed support, so high time frame support. So if it hits that, it's going to bounce. So keep an eye on that line, have an alert on that, and if it hits that, expect to see a rollover in strength on alts. If it's pushing down towards that, it'll retrace back up. But at this stage, the weekly is looking good to flow some money back into alts. Totals. So totals excluding BTC, they're in an okay place because they're effectively closing above, well, if they close above 1.72, and then you could see a bounce off that level and a push up to the trend. So I'd be expecting money inflow to come if this closes up here. If it pulls back down below these levels before the end of the day, below 1.72, then I'd expect the opposite. It'll be some kind of rejection. There is this daily hold candle that'll form today between 1.71 sort of area. The base of that is down at sort of about 1.68. So we do have a daily hold, and if it does close down for the day, that should be able to give it a bounce. If it closes up for the day and sweeps down, then that would be the point where the liquidity grab would sweep down to that and then bounce up from that to try and attack the trend again. So just need to keep an eye on whether that closes where it is, or ideally if it pushes back up to the top again at 176, it would be nice and clear above the trend at that point. Let's have a look at the weekly. Yeah, and the weekly is still in a really good spot. So we want to see this weekly close above that 1.74, ideally. In fact, is that even 1.74? What is that? 1.73. Splitting hairs. Okay, so let's have a look at our DXY totals. So this is looking good as well. We've got, looks like we're going to recapture some range trends. We're going to close above the break levels. So 3.87 and down, particularly this area of range trends just down under here, plus the prior broken trend. So everything's sort of 387 through to 383. Plus we're going to have a new hold candle forming. All of that is actually quite bullish for a move to the upside. Okay, and so looking into the overall total minus stables, looks like if we close where we close, we're going to be above the trends, well and truly above support. I think I've pretty much established that this doji down here represents accumulation, just purely looking at the interior just looking at the interior trend rules that apply. If you pretend that this was not a blue candle, then the trend actually ends up running through here, which definitely looks like it was the support to draw the price back up, which also means the interior runs through here, which means that these bounces are off the trend. So the problem with dojis when it comes to working on trends is they're not necessarily clear as to whether they are part of just an overall sweep of the trend, which is what it looks like this was, versus a shift of the trend. But by measuring both, or by basically putting the trends on both scenarios, it's quite clear that that one there is actually what's holding the daily up at the moment. So we're really looking for a daily close. Where we are now is great, 3.99. Super bullish would be to go back to that 4.02, and bearish would be to drop back below this range trend here, which is going to be about that 3.98. So this trend we just talked about in the Discord this morning, we've only ever two times, this could be the third. We've only ever 2 times got over that trend. Now, when we did, it represented a very big bounce. So it works out to be about a 20% bounce in the overall market cap, I think it was, 20 to something. So it kind of brings us up into this 4.8 area over here. Question would be the timing. So we've got trend resistance, which crosses over at about that 4.87 mark, unbroken trend resistance, and that's about the 3rd of November. So if we were to have like quite an ongoing bullish month, just unreasonable up, maybe we sweep the trend again, something along those lines, and then just some more up. They might take some of that closer liquidity. It's entirely possible that they dive down before they move up, but certainly by that 3rd of November, somewhere in there, it's probably going to try and push through one of these trends. It may hit the next one and then go down into a big fall. So once we get over this, I think it was this trend right here. Once we get over this trend, it was about a 20% move, to the upside, and then after that, it was about a 40%, almost perfectly 40% move from the high to the retracement low. So yeah, just keep in mind that somewhere up in this area is probably where we're going to be flipping short bias. Okay, let's have a look at the weekly view. Great. All we can say is great. It looks really good. It's got a crossover, that same sort of area based on standard trends, but that's you might see that happen earlier, and so instead of actually waiting for this point, you might find that if you just run a horizontal from that point, that becomes the sweep of the candle above that trend, and then down it goes. So I think that's probably that 4.8 level on the totals minus stables is definitely where I'll be looking for signs of proper decent retracement to start at this stage. Okay, let's have a look at BTC. Right, so that's a really bullish daily chart. It's up above pretty much all the resistance. What is really not great about this is the fact that it is not retesting things. So, we've been through this before where we just go up and up and up, and then suddenly, once all that liquidity is formed and everyone is very euphoric, we go down and we do all the retests. So, we're sort of at a point now where we definitely could bounce off the top side of this break, but it is not a hard close break, right? So what is hard close is things like the trends down here. They get hard close today at about that 122. What is well and truly hard closed and has not been revisited or retested is the 120.8, and that is the bottom line of the 100x leverage at this stage. So if they were to shift down to that, they would not only take out all the high leverage, which would be really possible given the cascading effect of high leverage, but it would also trap the leverage below. So we've also recovered this range trend down here at 117. We haven't retested it. We've also broken this range trend here, 120. We haven't retested it. We've also broken these levels down here at 115. So we haven't retested it. And our daily hold is all the way down here at 114, as is our trend. So I still do not feel very confident in saying that this thing's just going to keep going. It may do, because that is the whole point of blow off tops. And if we get up to this sort of 130 level up here, then we're running into the range trend that basically has created the subsequent rejections. And so maybe we do go all the way through to 132 before we get our drawdown. And I don't know what that would be roughly, but it's probably, if we did get to 132, and that would mean the bottom of our range is kind of arguable. It's either there or it's there, which would give you a pullback of roughly there or there if it only went to say 50%. So maybe if it pulled back from where it is now, then something through here, about that 116. So it's a bit tricky to tell whether that thing's just going to bounce and go. So staying above 124.5 on the daily is very bullish. That's basically your prior break level. Hard closing it is really bullish, but we can't do that for another day. Pulling back below it shows intention that they're not going to try and hard close it. Spending another day below it without touching it turns it into the equivalent of kind of weekly resistance on a daily. So yeah, we really just want to see what happens with today's close, whether they pull that back down or whether they keep it above. Yeah, keeping it above, like I say, still means you've got a couple of days before it becomes really support, but pulling it down below is where the intention shows that they want to go back down. So looking at the 2-day close today. So 2-day closes hasn't quite hit the trend resistance. It's pulling back down under the normal trend. It's still above the break level. So really the 2-day close is still looking pretty bullish. Which it's that 124.539 level, really. That's the important level. And it just needs to stay above that. Where I'd get relatively bearish is if it pulled all the way back down below 124 to close the day, because that's typically they'll sweep between the trends and then pull back down below where it started and then dump off the backside of the trend. And that gives us that 120.86 retest again, and there's these other retests down here. So 119.8 and almost, it's all the same numbers basically. There's a lot of confluence just between these levels at the moment. It's really just a case of whether it goes up some more before down or whether it goes down and up, and a lot of that comes down to availability of liquidity and greed. So looking at the 3-day, actually I don't think the 2-day is closing today. No, the 2-day isn't closing today, so it's got one more day to mess with us. So looking at the 3-day close, same numbers. So 124.539, so everything's kind of the same. Given that the 2-day actually has one more day to close, they can still close up today, even if they want to. And because it's not a hard close, then they can still push up even, and then they can pull down in the next 24 hours to actually get under these levels on the 2-day and then go down. So it's pretty, it can be pretty tricky. And then 124 for quite a bearish close if it closes today. And this will be another hard close of the 120.9 sort of area. So that, and then you got that prior broken trend running through there. So yeah, there's a lot of reasons for this to come down. It's just not doing it, which is possibly just because, hey, blow off top. looking at the 9-day. So 9-day is sitting just above the range trend. So it wouldn't have to come down much to be below that. It's got a hold level sort of down here around that 117, so we've got good support. And you've pretty much got a backside level here at 120.826. So this is pretty much what a full order block starts to look like. You've got a backside, you've got the middle part, and you've got the front part. So it's like a three-piece. It could bounce off this candle here, which means closing above the 124.539 level again, maybe off the body, 123.391, but it can bounce off that candle. The actual backside of the order block, though, is this one back here, which is the 120.826, so you'd sort of expect it to head more down into that. So a bit of a dip down and then a push up. It hasn't hit the trend resistance yet, so what that implies is that once it finds a hold level, it'll actually then aim back towards that. And looking at where those two align, it would be the next 9 days, so probably some kind of down and up or up and down in the next 9 days. This is a little bearish if it goes up and sweeps that exact area there, because that would then imply it's grabbing the liquidity to head down into one of these hold levels, whether it's the back side, the combi in the middle, or the front side. And because that's only one candle, that front side probably doesn't hold all that well. There'll be a deeper area in there, and we're not actually hard closing the interior trends in this. So it's, definitely at this sort of level, it's showing that it could just come back even just a little bit before the end of the day and trigger a move down, or it could push up and not being a hard closed level, it could hit the resistance and come down. And then this is just insanely bullish long term, but it is got a couple of big warning signs attached. So looking at the 31-day, there is this trend coming through here, and I think that's the actual trend that's coming through at about, where are we, 115 to 114 area. And if it was to bounce off that, there really is nothing for that nothing to stop that until you sort of get to 200 to 230. So that's outside of my area that I thought that BTC would go this cycle, but charts are charts. So the last couple of times we have recaptured and bounced off this trend. So one of them is here. So this was the recapture point, and that was the top, which was 207, a little more, whatever. Let's not get too picky on the percentages, eh? Well, let's do it. Let's go. What are we? 235%. Okay, and then we bounced off it as support here as part of our blow off top, and that gave us 139% as part of the blow off top. And so this is actually, as far as this cycle goes, this is actually the first recapture of it, which is, if it actually bounces off it, and let's say we just pick the lower of the two, wow, and maybe round it down, that's 240%. That's huge. And if it was to go to, say, 130 as a blow off top, where are we? It's 264K for Bitcoin. If it was to give, these numbers are starting to get a little bit stupid in my opinion, but you just never know. There's big players in this thing now. How much greed do they have? How high do they want to push it? Yeah, let's not go any further, but that's a very interesting possible play. And that, yeah. Okay, so let's have a look at, just a quick look at the weekly. So weekly's looking good. It's kind of where you want it to be. Plenty of time for it to mess with us, but we'll just, yep, just leave that as that is. Okay, over to SOL. So as mentioned prior, alts have been lagging. So this part of the push up really has just been BTC, BTC, BTC. So we're looking at kind of a close that doesn't really help in any way today on the daily. It doesn't shift the resistance trend to the top side, so that's kind of a good thing. It doesn't close over the break level on the daily. It hasn't hit the greedy point of the front side hold yet, but I suppose arguably the confluence between the front side hold and the range trend is actually tomorrow anyway, so it's more likely that it was going to go there tomorrow. It doesn't shift the resistance trend. I mean, it's above the Trump trend. That's probably about the only good thing we can take from this. And it is inside the backside accumulation range on the daily. So that's, it sort of means tomorrow is quite important, because tomorrow it could hard close back up inside this accumulation range. And then, if it does that, it starts to shift support up into the 229 to 230 area, and it just gives it more reason not to have to go back down to this this 213 or 212 area. So that's looking interesting, but not really saying much. The one thing I don't like about this is that it's almost like it just purposely didn't touch the range trend. So I guess when it pushes up into that 238 or above area, it's now got a range trend. It's got the greedy part of the hold level. The break level is sitting up there at about 240, 241.7. So yeah, it looks like it's just waiting, and next candle might do that push up and then reject off these various resistances to then give a bit of a pullback, which does sort of line up with that liquidity we looked at the start. It would be quite easy for them to take the upside as a little bit of a push on SOL before any retracement, whereas BTC almost seemed like a retracement would be an easier play. So looking at the 3-day, this is long term, this is looking really bullish. Medium term, it's actually still looking quite bullish. So we've got a range trend that we are looking to be on the correct side of. We have a stack of resistance, that basically is between 240s and, or you might as well say 238, because we know that's in there, but 238 through to about 256. So there's stacks of resistance in there. If that rejects it, then if it does it too quickly before it's managed to hard close the range trend, that could bring it back to the 230s. If it loses this area, then your whole candle is down there in that 212. So it's really not out of the woods. So because it's kind of just hovering in the middle of the ranges, and these are not really big ranges, like three days is not a high time frame range. Because it's kind of hovering in those ranges, you don't really know whether it's going to take a sweep to the top side and then a dump back to find support. But what we do know is that we've got high time frame support on a 3-day at 200. So it's just another, as of that previous close, it's really just another way of saying that, hey, look, we probably aren't going to see much below 200 without some kind of real good resistance to run into in the upside. And Yeah, so the range trend confluence and standard trend confluence around the end of October is this sort of bird's nest that's up here. What could happen is we could push up somewhere in the next few days, week or whatever, have some kind of pullback, get over the top of the break level, reclaim this trend. If we reclaim that trend, we're going to head up here, and that gets us into the 300s, potentially by the end of October. But that is a bit of a bird's nest, on the lower time frame, and you'd expect then to see some kind of retracement from that. So that's, which I guess is just common sense, really. When you get to an all-time high, people tend to sell. So looking at the 9-day, so 9-day is going to confirm high time frame support at 194. So just more levels that are going to become quite strong. It looks at this stage, unless it was to push up a bit, that it's going to be under the range trend. So that's just more confluence with that to, what is that? Yeah, that area right there from 242 upwards, which would become range trend, origin resistance, standard trend resistance. It's got to get through all that. Now, if it gets through all that and bounces off the top side of it, which basically means we start to close, some of these medium-sized candles above that 247, 248 area, then off to the 300s it goes. So it's looking like it's really at that point of, do we get one final rejection and go? It could also find support based on this whole candle. So sometimes when you close up inside of a whole candle like this, which this is not technically a hard close, but if you close up inside of a whole candle like this, sometimes the actual inverse, the area that should have rejected, becomes support. It flips, and so that's sort of your 217, 214 area. So and then you've got prior high time frame support, which has also been hard closed, and that's running through here at 20, basically 204. So yeah, if this thing keeps holding this uptrend, then the next area of pullback at most should be about 204, and then push up from there. The area it's really got to get over is that 246 to 248 area, and other than that, it will just play in that channel until it breaks on one side. And then this is pretty bullish. So this could close today above the break level on the 31-day, and the origin level rejection for this was 258 previously. So this was your prior break level back here in 2021, hit, closed below, failed to accumulate back to the line, struck again, big dump. Right, so that was your sweep of liquidity to the upside, and then your big push to the downside. So the next time we approach this level at 258.467, it would be wise to expect some kind of rejection. The type of rejection you see dictates whether it's a bullish rejection or a bearish rejection. So sweeping above and then pulling below, that's bearish, because it's a liquidity grab to go down low. And as you can see, the trend coming through here then got swept to the downside and then up, bounce off the trend, and off you go. If it touches it, and this is one of those times when you get like that entry to the third decimal place, if it just taps it and then rolls back down to the prior trend, which was broken previously but is now capable of being recovered because the price is opening above it, or even more bullish, if it just moves back to the 234.026 break level, then that's really bullish. So just a bounce between these two lines, great. A bounce back to the trend, still really, really bullish. What's bearish is if it does a big sweep of this, because that's when it is potentially going to come and look for one of these lower levels or older trends. The only risk in this today is that the trend that's actually running through here will shift to the top side. So yeah, we are going to have more resistance forming in that area than what was previously there. And so you could get a sweep of both, but it's 31 days. So it could hit it, tap it, come back, find support, go back up, close over this, and keep going. So it's yeah, it's definitely the way that they're just kind of keeping it above that break level at the moment. Just 80 cents above the break level is looking like bullish intention. And like I say, that liquidity is to the upside, easily grabbable on SOL. So that all seems like quite bullish. And we get to the point where BTC should start to rotate something into more risk. So that's when BTC goes from one all-time high of 120 to 122 to 123 to 125 to 126, it's not really huge, in the scheme of things. If people think that by buying an altcoin now they're going to get 100% out of it, then they're going to start rotating. So that's where that one's at. And the weekly's in a good position to break the range trend. This is the rejection that just stopped the price, which is this prior origin level on the weekly from back here in December. So it's just done that tap. So this is sort of what we're looking for with that higher time frame on the 31 day. If it just gives it a tap like this, but then it pulls back a bit, but it stays above the support, that's really bullish. It's when it sweeps it like it did in this week, and it swept all the way up to grab as much liquidity from the top side as you can, then it comes back down, closes below, and just dumps. Right, so this is kind of what we're seeing. We want to see whether it plays out like it did a couple of weeks ago, so 15th of September, or we want to see if it's playing out like this weekly is playing out this week, where it's just beautiful little tap, goes down. This is really common behavior too. This is a very tradable behavior. Normally, if you hit high time frame resistance and you sweep it and you dump, the second time you can almost get like 100x entry with like third decimal place precision. So it won't necessarily travel as far, but the risk to reward of taking a super high leverage trade with a tight stop loss means you can play out quite a bit, even if the price only moves a couple of dollars. So it's that's the kind of thing you should study if you're looking to build bags quickly, is the second touch of high time frame resistance. Okay. What else we got? Should we have a look at some of these others? Right. So SUI. SUI's been really, really strong, kind of like ETH, and definitely been showing much more strength than what SOL has up to this point. So it looks like it's going to close above all of those resistance levels other than the break level. But key important thing is that it's managed to accumulate back to the break level in this candle. So it's got a hold level. Next one can definitely break through. So where it hasn't managed to accumulate back to the break level on the daily is this 3.82 level up here and this 3.89 level up here. So if we bounce the trends, bounce the range trends, then you would want to look at taking a TP into the hold candle, which starts at 3.75 and heads up to 3.77. So you're going to want to look to take some kind of profit off the table in there, because that's going to potentially reject. And then you should get a decent rejection of 3.8240. But it could be a sweep type of rejection, right? So it could go up, maybe even hit this higher level up here, and then come back from there. So not the type of high leverage one, but the type of one where you just sort of wait for confirmation on a lower time frame. Maybe keep an eye on it on like a 1 hour or 4 hour after it goes into it on the daily. And yeah, that's overall though, this thing looks like it's creating a parallel channel to actually go back to retest this range trend up here at about $4.50. The monthly break is about $4.30, so it sits somewhere in between these, kind of, funnily enough, at about 50% mark of the channel come the middle of the month. So it's it must be based on, where is our monthly? 27th, 14th, must be based somewhere in here. 30th, $4. Something in there. There is a monthly break level coming through there at about 4:30, trust me. And it looks like the key breakout level is probably going to be this one. So this is your 3.8961. So pretty much if you're in this trade, all you're looking for is you're looking to see if you can get back up above that level with a close, because if it gets back up above that level, it'll step it up a notch and it'll be coming up to these higher points. And I haven't really looked too far into this, but this range trend through here on the daily is probably quite important. Just it created the first touch rejection of that created a huge move down from $3.70 all the way down to $2.29. The sort of bird nest, I'm just making that term up now, but the bird nest area for that is about $5.60. So it's probably somewhere in there is what I'll be keeping an eye on. And that's, funnily enough, about the start of November. So we'll see how that goes. Okay, NA. So the NA trade played out quite well yesterday. So what I said was that if we come down into this daily hold, I will basically scalp the daily hold to level out the position, and then I'll TP back up here at that. So I did that. I actually put some on the 5679 here. So I put about half the position there, and I put half the position on the body. I did not get the body entry because this seems to be something that's happening a lot at the moment. Just there, although that was looking really bad, there's still a lot of greed in this, which is really interesting. Psychologically, it's very interesting to know that something that's looking really bad, there's still more greed than usual, in the market. So got that, took that off the table there, which now means my entry is down lower. What I think I'll do now is I'll hold this, just purely because it's generating another hold level here. It's closing back up above the prior broken trend. It's closing above the range trend. Now, I think the confluence between the hold level, the range trend, and the prior broken trend down here at about 0.5886 could be able to give this thing another decent push up. However, this level through here, okay, at 6169 is now a level where there's been failed accumulation, so it hasn't managed to get back to that level. So that'll be higher time frame resistance now. So I'll probably just take a TP there, wait to see if it closes over that, and if it closes over that, I might just put it back in and go again. But yeah, at this stage, it looks like it could go down, push up, dump is probably what I'm seeing there on the daily. So let's have a look at World Liberty Finance. So bounced off the trend. It's in a position now to open the new day above the downtrend. This is good. In the scheme of things, it still hasn't come up and hit the greedy point of the hold level yet. So, if you'd taken the trade on the trend, you'd probably still just hold it. You could take a little bit of profit. Maybe see whether it closes the daily over this. So it's not like ENA, like it hasn't created a hold level, but if it does close over 2008, then it does create a hold level. So if it doesn't create a hold level, maybe just take a little bit of profit if you're in the trade, and then set your stop loss at your entry and see how it goes. If it does create a hold level, then it's probably going to push up to the top side. to the greedier part of the whole candle that's up here above the 0.2056. ZEUS. I haven't entered this, just FYI, but I'm just thinking that if it does pop, that's probably how it's going to pop. Obviously, there'd be multiple TPs along the way to get to the trend. But yeah, at this stage, it needs a little bit longer. This is more of a weekly play. And ideally, what I would like to get is that entry as a sweep from the top side of the trend down into the newly formed high time frame support. We've already tested that hold level, so that shouldn't be a problem. Should be able to get our first TP up here at the break level. So yeah, if we can get a 10-cent entry after confirmation of high time frame support, but the way to enter this is actually to not enter when it touches the line, because if it is going to do a really big move up, it'll sweep that line from the top side. So it'll be a case of don't enter it until the price is coming back up, and then enter, and then let it keep going. So that's all I see there. Cook pushed up and hit the next level. So that was the high time frame resistance. And this is just, again, like what I just said in that prior thing. If you want to build a bag quick, it's about high leverage and patience. And this is how I started. I was backwards. I learned 100x trading prior to anything else, and now I prefer swing trading because there's less waiting, there's less stress, it's better on your heart. but this is how you build bags, right? So you've got this, comes up here, does the sweep, comes down, failed accumulation, conversion to high time frame resistance, comes up, taps it to the decimal point, retracement. You know, you can get really big leverage trades in on these. So it's just, that's how you do it. Hype. So it's building high time frame support. It's done that actually. It's in a position where it could get on top of the range trend, maybe. It's right there on the fence. So if this closes just up a little bit for the day, it could bounce off the top side of that and go up. Don't know why I marked that level. Get rid of that. It is failed accumulation, sweep, dump. So that pushed up a little bit. It could still reject off that 49.88 level, but the rejection would probably, if it did reject off that, it might just reject back to trend. I might have to do some more detail on this chart actually, because Hype's relatively new, so charting it on a weekly is a little bit of a no-no. It's probably a daily type thing to chart this on. You can tell that from the accuracy is, you know, the way it swept. Yeah, sweep. Yeah, so it probably needs to be charted on a lower time frame. Like ASTER. ASTER's still really a 4-hour token. Like if you're dealing with it, it does have a daily. I actually took a daily trade on this yesterday, so it was from this area down here. See, it's way too many lines, but basically we had a daily support starting at about 1.8989, and what I said yesterday was that it's probably going to come for the 4-hour, and then if it comes for the 4-hour, it'll probably go back to the 4-hour. And so sure enough, it went to the 4-hour level inside the daily, and then, you know, went up. But then what it did is it's actually bounced back to the daily and then pushed up to the daily. So, you know, this is kind of like time escalating. It's a token that's quite new. It works very well on the 4-hour, but it is building the daily structure, and it's also building the 2-day structure as well. So this is you know, growing. But you know, there was a fella, I don't actually know, but there was a person, a human in the Discord who had entered at this 214 level, and I said, don't worry, you're probably going to be able to get out. It's going to go back to that 214. It actually spiked up and hit the prior broken trend, which was running through here. So tapped into that, didn't hit the range trend resistance. So there's still resistance up here, at a higher level on this, and I think it's going to gradually develop daily structure and keep going higher. Even if there's a pullback, it's a great token to buy the pullbacks and TP the moves up while it sort of develops. So ETH very strong. This is good from a cycle theory perspective because BTC should rotate into ETH and then ETH should rotate into alts. So if ETH is the strongest looking out of everything right now, then the L1s, etc. should follow. So it looks like it's going to close above the daily as long as it closes above that 4642, and then the next break level is up there at 4765. There could be what's that? That is a hard close break level, so I wouldn't be too concerned about that. Probably just this level at about 4793.28. So that's it was a break level, got hit, had a rejection, hasn't had its touch after rejection yet. So yeah, that's probably, I'd be very keen to, if you're in this, if you're in ETH, it's going to open on trend above break level, not hard closed. So it could push up to 4765 or 4793 and then have a rejection off that area. But the main prior broken trend that hasn't been retested is this dashed line from before this shifted. So that's up there, funnily enough, at about 5 grand. That's a nice round number. I think if ETH got to 5 grand, people would start to sell. So that could be where that's heading. But most likely would reject off these first. I'd be quite bearish, short-term bearish, like say on the daily for the next week or so. If it pushes through all this, hits that 5 grand and then pulls back down, and if you get some kind of big wick on the top side of the candle like that, that could be quite bearish. And that trend may not be right just because it's attached to that doji there. So yes, should probably have a look to see whether that is correct somehow. Might need to update that. Cool. Right, that's about it for today. Hopefully you got something out of that. Like, subscribe, and come join us in the Discord. And yeah, we'll talk again tomorrow. Cheers. Bye.